Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 199 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be continuing on our series, is number one way to improve your accuracy. In this episode, we're going to be diving into the 6mm Creedmoor, and we're going to be diving into it from two perspectives, from that of shooting as an adult and from that of shooting it as either a new shooter, a young shooter, or a female shooter. And we're going to dive into the details of how much foot-pounds of energy either can take and still keep it in an enjoyable level, and in an adult's case, 0 to 10 foot-pounds, and we think in a younger shooter, 0 to 5. We're also going to announce in this episode, we are going to be giving away a slot for our long-range shooting school. So our last class of the year is October 11, 12, and 13, and we're going to share with you some details that not only can you come in and attend the class for free, but we're also going to include in that the use of a school rifle, ammunition, bipods, mats. It is going to be a giveaway. We give away this once a year, and we're going to share with you the details at the end of the podcast. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. But without further ado, here we go. All right, before we get started, I do want to say thank you to a couple of our sponsors. We'd like to thank MDT, maker of fine rifle chassis, including the new Timber, which we find a great entry-level chassis, really good looking, super strong. You've got the new ACC Elite. You've got the HNT 26, just a great chassis manufacturer with a lot of great choices. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and your shooting, stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com. We'd also like to thank TriggerTech. TriggerTech is maker of fine rifle triggers. We consider it to be the safest trigger on the market, one of the easiest to install, one of the easiest to adjust, with a ton of great options. So if you want to upgrade your shooting game and you want to do it with a trigger, stop over to triggertech.com today. That's triggertech.com today. So we're going to continue on our series, and in this one, we're going to be talking about the 6mm. And I tried to pick out a caliber that I'm familiar with, and we're thinking about what's commercially successful, been around for a long time, most people are going to be familiar with. And we're talking about our end game, right? So we're trying to say, okay, How can you shoot better? How can you get better shot placement? How can you enjoy yourself more? How can you pick a cartridge that you're going to shoot more accurately? And we came up with a really cool description again. I thought this was the best way to describe it, is we're saying, look, if you want to really get out there and get after it and not just shoot things and kill them and bring them home and eat them, but actually enjoy yourself in the process of preparing for it, or if you're thinking about preparing the next shooter up, you think about a young shooter, you think about a female shooter for the first time. None of them like to get smacked in the face, right? And so picking out an appropriate caliber and, finding something that they're going to enjoy shooting, they're going to have better shot placement and eventually better success, and you're going to have a long-term shooting partner. So when we break these calibers down, we're saying calibers with 1 to 10 foot-pounds of energy on the shooter is going to be something that we would consider enjoyable for most adults. Now, I say adults there because we're going to talk about the 6MMs here now. Then we're saying comfortable, right? Most people could probably shoot this reasonably well and not be getting the snot kicked out of them, right? We're saying about 10 to 20 foot-pounds. Now, uncomfortable is 20 to 30 foot-pounds of energy on the shooter. Think of a hard-kicking 300 Win Mag. That covers a lot of territory, 30 to 50 foot-pounds of energy. That means you're shooting it simply because your guide told you to, or you're going on an African big game hunt where they say, this is what you have to shoot when you get there. And then we're saying call the medics, right? Anything over 50 foot-pounds of energy on a shooter, and you're going to be taking a ride in an ambulance or needing therapy after a couple shots, right? So we're trying to break it down in a way that so you can gauge it and put a number to particular rifles and weights. And, the weight of the rifle, the caliber of the rifle, break on, break off, suppressor on, suppressor off, and just give you some real working numbers. So when we jumped up from the 22 calibers in which we were talking about the 22 Creed, the next big step into this is something along the lines of a 6mm. And I'm only going to do 2 cartridges in the 6mm to talk about here, although there are. You've got, the 24 Nosler, you've got some Weatherbees out there. There are other cartridges that get a lot more horsepower behind this little 6mm bullet. However, though, most aren't commercially successful. The Weatherby, if you can find ammo, I can't think of what the ammunition would cost off the top of my head. My guess is, most Weatherby type ammunition is more than $100 for 20 rounds. And so you've got that to deal with. So I'm trying to say, okay, let's pick out two calibers that most people are going to be familiar with, and you could probably go to Walmart and buy it off the shelf. So right out of the gate, it's got to be the 243 and the 6mm Creedmoor. Those are probably the most two successful 6mm cartridges on the market, outside of maybe when you get into match shooting, in which case you'd have like the 6BR and the 6-Dasher, stuff like that. So let's just use the 6mm and the 6mm Creedmoor. Now, the funny part is they both run about the same velocities. I think the 6mm Creedmoor is probably a better case design overall, just because it's a better case design, a better shoulder design. You're going to have, a longer neck to support the bullet, especially when we start talking about the heavier bullets, and maybe just more of the modern take on a 243. But the funny part between both cartridges is if you bring up Hodgkin's Reloading Data Center, they run the same bullet about the same speed. So there's not much difference between them when you start talking about the velocity that you can achieve. Now, of course, the velocities we're going to use are the average high velocities that we could find. You will hear people that load them super hot or push things crazy. We don't recommend you do that, right? Let's just keep it between the lines here and try to use something that's a reasonable, but the fastest speed that we can find in the book, to try to really compare it and gauge it. So right out of the gate, if I'm thinking modern 6mm hunting, I'm thinking 100+ grain bullet, something along the lines of a 108 ELD-X, which has a very, very high BC. It's going to carry energy downrange, but the funny part is the BC's 0.536. It's even lower than the 88 grain ELD match that you can shoot out of a 22 Creedmoor or a 90 grain ATIP. That aside, though, the average velocity that you can get those up to on the books that we found is about 3,000 feet per second. I only seen one or two more that pushed a little bit harder than that out of 24-inch barrels, but that seemed to be the top average. And in this case, when we start talking about that, we're going to compare it with a 10-pound rifle, the recoil that it puts on the shooter, as well as a 16-pound match gun. So just talking pure ballistics with the cartridge, you're going to have about 1,550 foot-pounds of energy at 300 yards, and that's what's considered minimal acceptable for elk. That's pretty good, and I think that's part of it is the weight of the bullets helping significantly to carry some of that energy downrange, as well as, of course, the higher BC. And then you get to about 1,000 foot-pounds of energy, probably rate about 620 yards. And then, of course, 500 foot-pounds of energy, a little bit past 1,000. But that said, we're saying 1,500 and 1,000 foot-pounds. So 1,500 is going to buy you just a little over 300 yards. And then 1,000 foot-pounds probably going to buy you just a little over 600. Now, the energy on a shooter, right, this is the recoil that you're going to deal with, goes up pretty significantly as soon as you bump up to a 6mm. And especially when you start talking about not that much more energy on target, right? So let's just use, for an example, the energy on a shooter with a 10-pound hunting rifle, we're talking scope and everything involved, but a 10-pound hunting rifle is about 8.7 foot-pounds of energy in recoil. And if you put a muzzle brake on it, you're going to get that down to about 6.29. So reasonable, right? And then when you bump that up to a 16-pound rifle, something like a match gun, you're going to drop that recoil or energy on the shooter to 5.49 foot-pounds of energy, and with a brake or suppressor average about 3.93. That's really good, actually. Then when we start comparing that to the 22 Creedmoor, though, and we start talking about a 10-pound rifle, we're at 6.92 respectfully and 4.87. So you're about 20 to 23% more recoil over a 22 Creedmoor shooting an 88 grain or 90 grain bullet at over 3,100 feet per second. You've got a less BC, and your energy on target with if we talk about the 22 Creedmoor, you're still at about 1,500 foot-pounds at 250 yards and 600 yards at 1,000 foot-pounds. So your energy on target, believe it or not, is about the same at the same distance. A little bit less energy for 1,500 foot-pounds because it's a much lighter bullet, so about 250 yards for 1,500 foot-pounds. But for 1,000 foot-pounds, they actually match each other. And that's because the 22 Creed is starting off at a higher velocity, and it has a higher BC, so it can carry that energy further downrange. So they're almost twins with energy on target, even though you're shooting the heavies out of 243. and the 22 Creed's about 22% less recoil on the shooter. Now, that doesn't sound like much, and it's not. But to a 12-year-old, that's a lot, right? So we have to take that into consideration. Now, if we're going to make a hunting rifle out of a 243, and we're thinking, okay, hey, we're going to have a kid shoot this, there are other bullets to shoot. So, for example, you can shoot a 90 grain or 85 grain bullet. I love the 243. I shot it forever, by the way, because back in the day, that was a great long-range varmint round. There was a better bullet selection in 22 calibers. There wasn't a fast twist in the 22s that you see now. And just flat shooting, hard hitting. The bullet of choice, though, for a lot of, if you go back through your early reloading manuals, which, by the way, I'm just going to sidestep this for 1 second. If you get a chance and you go to a lot of these gun shows, one of the cool things to pick up is look for old reloading manuals of all the different years, because what I find fascinating is, one of the things that these reloading manuals had in them, think of something like from Hodgkins or Redding or whoever, is they usually had an article written about that particular caliber that they're going to talk about, and usually by a professional. And it really dives into the history of the cartridge and gives you some great background. So I remember reading an article on a 243 once in one of the older manuals that the 85 grain bullet out of a 243 was considered like a great mule deer cartridge back in the day. You're thinking like back in the 70s and such. Flat shooting, easy to shoot, hard hitting. And, here we are today. It's still, I would consider, acceptable for all of that. And then when you start talking about an 85 or 90 grain bullet out of a 243, of course, you're going to get the velocities up a lot, right? We're talking about 3,200 feet per second, which isn't too shabby. And then, of course, the BC, though, does a total nosedive. So where the 22 calibers step up with an 88 grain bullet of a BC of 545, the 6mm with the same weight bullet has a BC of .409. And this is where I think modern technology and modern ammunition comes into play, is the fact that you're shooting the same weight bullet, a much, much higher BC, and you're going to retain that energy downrange longer. But we're talking 6 Creed 243 here. Now, the recoil on the shooter here is about 7.48 foot-pounds of energy with a 10-pound hunting rifle, and with a break or suppressor, that's going to drop down to just a little over 5. And then 4.67 foot-pounds of energy on the shooter if you shoot a 16-pound match gun or have them shooting your match gun, and 3.2 with a break or suppressor. So certainly, without a doubt, acceptable, right? Now, one of the things to keep in mind is that all of those numbers fall into our first category of enjoyable. And I would say most adults will shoot the 243 well and exceptionally well. We're saying 0 to 10 foot-pounds is comfortable. And of course, this is definitely falling into that category. We're 8.7, so we're getting close to 10 foot-pounds, but it's still, it's not a bad shooting rifle. It's not going to hit you hard. It does have a little bit more velocity coming to the rear on the shooter, but not bad. But I want to pause that for 1 second here because, again, I've got a fair amount of history with 243. I shot a 6.5 pound and with an optics probably just under 7 pounds for one of my varmint rigs forever, and just a little hoppy, jumpy rifle. Like, you wouldn't think it would have bipod hop and all these things. It did. The reason I'm sharing this story is with you is that, we're talking about adult shooting it. It's certainly in that 0 to 10. I would absolutely rate that as comfortable, right? But if we're going to talk about kids in the introduction of kids into shooting or young shooters, then I'm going to say that 0 to 5 pounds is going to be in that comfortable or enjoyable range. That 5 to 10, or you start getting close to 10, it really changes quickly for them. And I'm going to share with you a story. My daughter was about the age of shooting, and we were getting that 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. And I remember I took her to the range, and there was somebody joining us there to go shooting with us with their daughter. And I'm not going to say any names so I don't get my butt in a ringer with somebody who might be listening to this podcast. Although if they hear the story, they're probably going to recognize it, and I'm sure they're going to hang their head a little bit on this one, right? So I try not to preach to people about what they have to shoot or what they don't have to shoot, but I love to shoot, and I love to share this with people, and I love them to be part of our world in it, right? And anytime somebody's suffering or they just don't know what they don't know, sometimes the consequences are you just lose your future hunting partner, right? And so this gentleman had his 12-year-old daughter there meeting us at the range. Of course, our daughters knew each other. And he took advice, not from me, from somebody else, that a 243 was the minimum you had to shoot a white-tailed deer with. And okay, sure, sound advice. But for a 12-year-old girl. So anyway, we get to the range. And again, we're talking about, I think this rifle was a really lightweight kid's rifle. So it wasn't like a Cricket per se, but I'm going to guess with optics and everything, it was probably a 7 or 8 pound rifle. And oh dear God, he bought like these 95 or 100 grain round nose or whatever you want to call them bullets. So a little bit on the heavy side. If I was introducing a kid with a 243, I'd probably be shooting a 70 grain or even a 58 grain, VMAX or something like that, right? Just something super, super light. Not really great long range choice, but super, super light bullet to reduce that recoil. Well, 3 or 4 rounds into it, and it was a big fight on the line. Obviously the girl was upset. She didn't want to shoot it no more. She was telling her dad that it was scaring her, right? Dad, I don't like this rifle. It's scaring me. I don't want to shoot it. And of course, you know how dads can be sometimes, just stupid. And he was like, this is the rifle I bought you. This is what you have to shoot if you're going to go hunting. And you know how that goes. And try not to get in the middle of these things. But, there I am. And she shot it 1 or 2 more times. And of course, she started crying a little bit. Now, I stopped the dad right there. And I was like, hey, let's talk here a minute. I said, did you shoot that rifle? And he looked at me like, what? Did I shoot it? I'm like, have you shot this rifle with 100 grain bullets in it? And he goes, no, because he shoots 300 Win Mag, right? And I'm like, look, I know you think it's a light recoiling rifle, but you bought a really lightweight version 243. You're shooting on the heavy side for bullets. You should probably put a round through this gun, because the rifle is supposedly bore-sighted by the store, and he never cracked a round through it. He was instantly letting her shoot the rifle, right? He shot 1 round and come off the gun. And he was like, holy shit. He said, that thing's got a little wallop to it. He said, it jumps, doesn't it? And I was like, yeah, that's because you bought a 5.5 pound rifle with a very inexpensive scope on it and 100 grain bullets. I said, this rifle recoils. It's not a kid's gun. That's, if you want to make this a kid's gun, then go out and buy ammunition that's like a 70 grain or 58 grain. And it's going to reduce that recoil significantly, or get some weight to it, or consider, adding something to the gun to get it to calm down a little bit. And I think, at that point, I didn't have to say anything. You could see it in his eyes. Said, hey, you ever have that look on your face where I messed up? Like, damn it. And, we all get that way. And I'm sure I've made many mistakes in my life that I've probably said that myself many times. But when we start talking at 0 to 10 foot-pounds, I just want to be cautious, because the 243 is a well-sought-after cartridge, especially for new shooters. The same thing, like I grew up shooting the 30-30, and believe it or not, with a 150 grain bullet, that stupid thing jumped around pretty good. For a 12-year-old, it was a little bit of a handful. Not only that, but it was flipping heavy to carry around. But, we look at these cartridges from the adult's perspective, but we never look at it from a new shooter's perspective that, hey, this is like a brand new thing, and it's startling because it's like a fireworks going off in front of your face. You don't know what's going to happen. You might be a little scared of it. Like, kids don't like loud noises. So you have something repeatedly sounding like a car crash in front of their face, and then you throw on that, the gun's bouncing all over the place uncontrollably, and they're going to get nervous, right? And then you add a little bit of pain or scared in there. And of course, they're trying to please their parents and saying, hey, I'll give it my best. And she did for the first 3 or 4 rounds. But obviously, you could see that it was not the rifle for her. And she was a small kid for her age, too. So when I'm talking about kids shooting, especially new shooters or young, women that are getting into this, I say 0 to 10 pounds is very comfortable, right? Easy for us as adults to shoot, no problem whatsoever. But when you get into kids, I would probably cut these numbers in half. So when we're thinking of like sub 16-year-olds, like 14, and I know someone out there probably has a 14-year-old that shoots a 300 WSM, no problem at all. And I get that. There are exceptions to the rule. But if I was searching this out for a child or for a new shooter, my numbers would look like this. 0 to 5 I would say enjoyable, right? 10 to 20, comfortable for adults, but maybe 5 to 10 comfortable for children or for young shooters. And then uncomfortable, I would cut it in half. I would say 10 to 15 is going to get really uncomfortable in a hurry. So, we have these numbers here that we're using. We're saying enjoyable is 1 to 10 foot-pounds, comfortable is 10 to 20, uncomfortable is 20 to 30. But I would cut all of those numbers exactly dead center in half, and I would work my best to try to get that under 5 foot-pounds of energy. And it can be done. So if we're talking about a 90 grain bullet with a muzzle brake, we're at 5 foot-pounds. Without a muzzle brake, you're at 7.48. A 16-pound heavier rifle is 4.67. So there's several options to get even a lighter weight hunting rifle down. Put a suppressor on it, and you've reduced it to 5 foot-pounds of energy. And then I am absolutely certain if you drop that down to a 70 grain or 65 grain solid, you're going to get a little bit more velocity out of it. Or like I shot a 58 grain VMAX forever out of a 243, and I think our speeds were like 35, 50, and it was just a whoop ass on woodchucks at like 500-600 yards. Knocked the stuffing out of them. And I've actually taken a deer hunting. I know people out there be like, oh my gosh, you're shooting a deer with a 58 grain VMAX. We're talking, chest shots on does, no problem at all. Softball size hole in them, right? But I'll guarantee it in a 58 grain bullet in that 10-pound rifle, you're going to be at that 5 pound and under, probably a lot more enjoyable for shooters. And again, our goal isn't just to go out and kill stuff. Our goal is to have them enjoy the process from start to finish, to have them want to eagerly go to the range with you and shoot, and enjoying going out and shooting targets and seeing their impacts and putting some like gallon water jugs up at 300 yards and watch them blow up. And you want them to enjoy the whole process, not the end game of just killing something, right? Because we can do that with anything, including a spear. But you want them to be drawn to it. And the only way they're going to continue that draw into our sport is if they're having fun, right? I'm going to skip over when we get into the next cartridge. We're going to jump right into the 6.5s, right? And we're going to break the 6.5s down into two calibers. Or into two categories. We're going to drop them from 6.5 short action to 6.5 magnums. And there are two camps here, and they definitely each deserve their own conversation. And I think this is where we start to get a really high performance big game cartridge in an absolutely manageable rifle, depending on the setup and how you're going to set the break in. And then we're going to give them some numbers. Hey, where are we at? What are we on foot-pounds of energies to the shooters? And hey, if you want to look some of these numbers up, I'm going to put the link down below. You can go to Varmint Al's website. He has a recoil calculator on his shooting page. And you can put all the parameters in on your rifle and punch these numbers up yourself, and it'll tell you the foot-pounds of energy hitting you, as well as the velocity in which the rifle is coming back and slapping you. So it's really interesting that it's not always about just the energy, but how fast it's coming back and hitting you and pushing you as well. All right, some updates we want to go over. I think some pretty exciting stuff here. Ready? We're going to give away a slot to our long-range shooting school. So we have our last class coming up in October. Technically speaking, right now we have 2 slots left in that class. We have 3 slots left for the year. This class is October 11, 12, and 13, and we are going to announce the winner at the end of August. So this is going to be about 5 or 6 weeks. You'll get a chance to sign up for it. Right around the end of August, beginning September, maybe right around September 11th for the anniversary of 9/11, we'll announce the winner, and then 4 weeks later, we're going to have you here, and it includes 1 out of 5 slots. You're going to be here with 1 of 5 shooters. It's a very small class. I teach every class personally, so you'll get this chance to spend a day with me, 3 days on the firing line. And we're going to include rifle, ammunition, bipods, mats. All this is going to be included for you to use at the school, not part of the giveaway, of course. We sort of keep the school rifles for the next student, but we're going to give it away. If you would like to join us, this is going to be a drive for our Wolfpack. So we have about 87 students now attending our online long-range shooting school. And in our online long-range shooting school, we are now calling that whole ecosystem of training, we're calling it the Wolfpack. And the reason we're doing that is because as we keep adding things to that, it's no additional charge. When you become a member of the Wolfpack, you actually get access to everything. And that includes a new video that's being posted up tomorrow for our reloading classes that we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about rifle care and maintenance page. We're going to have an armors course on there. There's just so much information over the next couple of years that we're going to keep continually posting up on this, that whether you're joining us, your primary care is to be a better shooter, and you're attending the online long-range shooting school, a lot of people that get into this will eventually lead down the path to reloading, eventually lead down to the path, of course, how do I take care of my rifle? What do I put on the bolt lugs? All of this is going to be part of the Wolfpack ecosystem. So you sign up for one class, you get them all, and it's the same price. So in order to qualify, we are going to give this away to one of our lucky attendees of the Wolfpack. And if you'd like to join us, we'd like to encourage you. It is our online long-range shooting school. It is a precursor to what you're going to attend here, and it sort of wet the whistle on all the things that we're going to teach and get to spend time with the Rifles on the Rifle. But if you would like to sign up, you can sign up on Patreon, or you can go to our website, the Online Long Range Shooting School. You can register for Patreon there. It is $49.95 a month, but this is sort of our way of giving back to the nearly 90 students who are currently attending the online class. And as a way to say, hey, if you would like to join us, we would love to have you. And on September 11th, we are going to give away a slot to one of the online school attendees to actually attend the in-person class free of charge with rifle and ammunition. So we encourage you to come over and check it out. It's wolfprecision.net. We'd love to have you. We'd also like to thank Krieger Barrels. Krieger is the maker of fine-cut rifle barrels. They are made in the great state of Wisconsin. They are family-owned and operated. In my mind, the best barrels on the market if you're looking for a custom barrel. There's a long lead time on them. We usually spend about 9 to 12 months waiting for any barrels that we order. We order them way out. So we're already ordering barrels for 2025. But they do have a new program called Krieger Direct where they have in-inventory barrels that you can actually log on, order, and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So these are in-stock items that you can actually receive your custom barrel, and that being a Krieger, and have it within a week and start getting ready to build your custom rifle. So great business, great family, great friends. Really enjoyed decades of building relationships with them, and a great new project that they've launched with this Krieger Direct. So learn more at KriegerDirect.com or KriegerBarrels.com today. So we get a lot of information here, and this is just a public service announcement or a PSA, because I think it's worthwhile noting. When we start talking about ammunition and factory versus custom, and we talk about all of the other manufacturers out there, we always caution people to do their homework and research on different rifle manufacturers, different ammunition manufacturers. One of them in particular, we just had to send out a newsletter because I had my office manager. She is my wife. She is our CFO as well. She looked up all of our 22 Creedmoor clients that we built 22 Creedmoors over the years, and the list is huge. And I was like, oh my gosh, we built that many of them, right? But we sent out a newsletter as well as a personal email to every single one of our clients saying, hey, look, there's a Copper Creek ammunition. There's been some warnings posted up about them running the rounds a little on the hot side and some people having issues. I know Proof Research just posted up something on their website, and we've noticed we had a customer bring some here. It's pretty hot. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe they know something I don't know. I have no way to measure the actual pressure, but I do know the speeds and everything else. And, not trying to throw them under the bus or talk badly about them. I don't know them at all. I've never spoken with them. However, though, the warning is up there on Proof's website right now. And I know we had some here that was pretty hot as well. And so I just wanted to pass it along to everybody out there. If you are building or using a 22 Creedmoor, we do not recommend that ammunition for in our rifles. It might work in others, but we do not recommend it in ours just because there's a chance that they are pushed a little bit too hard. We have not had any issues with them, but I noticed on some that we've had here that they were pretty warm in a customer's rifle, warmer than I would like to see them for sure. But then Proof just put out a little thing on their website, saying, hey, look, don't put this in our guns. We don't recommend them. So I'm just going to put it out there as well. When we get into making ammunition for a rifle, we talked about it we just finished up a shooting school last Sunday, and we had clients from as far away as Alabama. When we start talking about this, you've got a couple different aspects where people go down the rabbit hole of making ammunition. Some of it is because it's just hard to find. They're shooting a caliber it's hard to find. Other parts, guys are trying to save money or shoot more, get more bang for the buck. So, hey, if I can get from $500 investment and get 2 or 3 times as many rounds out of that $500 in the form of reloading, then that's great, right? And then you've got other guys that just don't have the time. Like, it's just, time is worth more to them than money, and they would rather buy good quality ammunition and save the time. And that part of it, I get. The fourth part of this is some people like to get into reloading ammunition and go down the rabbit hole because they want something to be in misery with. And this is one of the reasons why the online reloading class is going to be so interesting, because we've gone down that rabbit hole many, many times. I can tell you how much experience I have in reloading. It's just been crazy on how many rounds we have made over the years. But, we were forced to go down that hole not just because we want to shoot a lot and we make rifles and I wanted to compete, all of that. But then you got a lot of advanced hand loading. Back in the earlier days, we had really poor brass. If you didn't shoot lapel, you had to take some time to clean it up, and neck turning and cleaning up primer pockets and deburring flash holes. Some things you don't have to do now with current brass, especially the good stuff. But outside of that, some people like to get in there just because they want something to drive them crazy. I say if you have that personality, don't get into reloading. It's going to chew you up, right? But the other part of it is there's so much to know, and we probably average a couple phone calls a week where I'm actually on the phone speaking with customers over and over again about reloading and giving them advice and talking about their setup. Like I know yesterday I spent a good 45 minutes at the end of the day, a good customer, a good client for sure. But if I did that to every client that we have, I would have clients on hold for 3 weeks before I could pick up the line just to talk to them for 45 minutes. And the other part is they're not really getting an education from it. They're getting me talking real quick and giving them some pointers, but I'm sure they're not writing a lot of notes down. And some of the things that we talk about can be just flip over their head, or they forget, or what was that Jamie was talking about for that die? Like, what's a carbide button? So the importance of the online reloading class, and this is just me talking out loud, we're trying to help shooters sort of make decisions on what's going to be right for them and the best route to go with the least headaches, and sharing with them, hey, if you're going to go this route, rather than going down all these rabbit holes or everything that you read online about all this advanced techniques, to advanced things that we do to the brass, to crazy stuff people do with annealing. And I mean, it's so overwhelming that we try to approach it from, hey, keep it simple. Here are the basic rules. And if you follow these rules and go by the book, like Hornady or Redding, and you just literally go buy the book, besides, I'm not saying buy it like purchase, I'm saying follow it line by line, you will make world-class ammunition every single time. And I truly believe that. I mean, I've learned over the years that there are things that we could do to poor quality brass to make it shoot better, but we're in an age we don't have to do that now. We're in an age where you can actually buy a little bit better quality reloading equipment and not have to worry about some of the other things that you'll see people do. So if you're going to get into reloading, my advice to you is this. Seek out somebody you know and trust and who has that safety mindset, right? Don't hang out with a guy that's saying, yeah, we can stick 5 more grains in there. It's only 10 grains over max. Yeah, no, don't do that. But find someone to mentor you, which would be my first suggestion. But don't do it without following the book and going and using those guidelines of safety, right? You can't go wrong by doing that. And if you realize this person is not following the rules or going by the book, then, you shoot with them at a distance, or you just sort of part ways and go find somebody else to hang out with. Might save you, right? But the reloading class we're getting ready to post up online is risky to us because it exposes us to the potential of a lawsuit. I mean, let's just throw it out there that if somebody misunderstands or misreads or doesn't understand what we're talking about, and they go out and they hurt themselves, everybody wants to blame everybody else for their actions. You pull out of a signal light and you get into an accident and you're trying to blame the other guy because he was, people do crazy things, right? But we also know we can't protect ourselves from all of that. So when we're approaching the reloading, we're approaching it from the keep it simple, by the book, line by line. But we're also going to share with you a lot of the little things that we think makes a huge difference, just getting you out of the gate correctly. Like getting you a couple of steps forward to success and having success before you wind up dancing with crazy. And that's sort of our approach to the reloading class. And we'll be posting up our second video tomorrow. And we're really hoping that, like the customer that called yesterday, I was on the phone with 45 minutes. I think 2 of the subjects that we cover here in our in-person reloading class is nearly an hour and a half conversation. And we were trying to cover all of this in 45 minutes. And it's just hard to do, right? And not only that, but they might not be able to absorb it. So one of the beauties of the online class is you can go back and rewatch it. And that's the other thing. I know a lot of people that listen to this podcast are also business owners. They're also, sales, they travel. This is a cool thing to listen to. Maybe get some good advice from something. We're glad and we certainly appreciate you being here and hopefully get some value out of it. But that being said, though, as a business owner at 52 years old and getting older, I have to be really careful in the projects that I take on because honestly, I only have so much time left on this world anyway. And I don't want to do anything that doesn't have a long-term value, or if I'm going to take the time to teach this subject, I want to teach it once and then let people enjoy it for the next year, not me have to repeat myself 300 times on the phone on the same subject, because I really don't get any further ahead. I'm talking about the same thing over and over again. And in the end, I don't think we do the customer any justice doing that anyway. So a lot of the things that we're scaling back and we're refocusing is we're saying, look, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. We're going to do it the whole way, but it's got to have like a long-term effect on our business. It's got to have a long-term effect with freeing me up time-wise. It's got to be a subject that, I can save, I can teach it once and then they can just hit play and me not have to repeat it over and over again. And, hopefully maybe even something that might outlive me. 5 years from now, maybe some of the things that we shared will still have some value. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, although I'm sure it'd be a little bit dated on the conversations, but have some value that somebody might find it and be like, wow, that was actually a pretty good video. I'm glad, because it's basics, but it's not. It's basics with a lot of tips to say, here's why we teach it this way, and here's why we do it this way. And we have done this I've been reloading, honestly, since I was about 12 or 13 with my dad. I'm 52. I have made ammunition hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rounds just for the shooting school, not counting the competitions that I've done over the years. And all of it on a single stage press. I've tried multiple multi-stage presses. So I can share with you not just the successes that we've had and the things that we found at work, but we have also shared our experiences and failure and trying to find ways to speed up, to make more ammunition and do it better, and all the things that we ran into and the problems we ran into, because in this part, there's a yin and yang to everything that you do in reloading too. It's not just the good parts you got to look for. You got to look for what's going to go wrong because you changed something or did something else as an ingredient in the soup. So we're hoping when you start to see us slowly wheel out all these different contents, which is going to be on the rifle maintenance side, you're going to see a video come up every week, every couple weeks, and you'll see one come up for the reloading class. It's all part of our wolf pack, but you'll see the first 2 or 3 videos when it comes to reloading. That's new ones being released tomorrow. It's all safety, and it has to be that way because we're not just trying to tell the customer, look, here's some things you really need to think about if you're going to do this, and you have to be very responsible making the decision if you're going to take this on. But we also have to make sure that we're saying everything that needs to be said on our end to cover our behinds, to make sure that people understand where we're coming from and why we're teaching it the way that we are. So don't forget, if you'd like to join us, we would love to have you. It is called the Wolf Pack. You can register for that on Patreon. It's $49.95 a month. You can stop over to wolfprecision.net and just check out our online long-range shooting school, and that's where you would register at. Once registered, you will have access to all the new content being posted up on all of these other subjects that we are currently working on, with another video for reloading coming up tomorrow. And again, it dives into safety. So we want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us on the podcast. We certainly appreciate it. We certainly want to thank everybody that's reached out to us over the years and said hi and send us kind emails and saying how much they enjoy the content. If you like it and you would like to share it, we really appreciate that. It means a lot, helping us being found. And if you do enjoy the podcast, if you wouldn't mind leaving a nice comment, that really helps us in our ratings as well. And as always, please feel free to reach out to us via email or even a phone call. Yes, I pick up the phone and would gladly talk to anyone if I have a few minutes to answer some questions. But we want to thank you from all of us here at Wolf Precision for joining our podcast and for supporting it over the years. So thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us. My name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you are listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.